Hello, today we will be talking about sexual education in schools and why it should be treated and why it shouldn't be treated. So let's start.
We all know that sexual education has been a taboo and even more so in school, but it is never thought about the benefits of training it in school. Comprehensive sexual education employs young people to improve their capacity to analyze, communicate, and guarantee the well-being, value, and healthy relationship with respect.
It's very important to inform the risk not only of pregnancy but also of multiple sexually transmitted infections. In these times of precocious preteens, pregnancy among the teenagers, and sexually transmitted disease, children and adolescents need so much more than traditional classes. So, pregnancy prevention and safe sex really should be treated, of course, in an age appropriate way.
According to UNESCO, only 34% of young people around the world can demonstrate a great knowledge of sexually transmitted disease prevention and transmission.
And that 2 out of 3 girls in some countries have no idea of what is happening to them when they begin menstruating. These are some of the reasons why there is a high need for quality comprehensive sexual education.
Okay. The argument that Aura and I would be and Aura and I would be present will present that are that the main effect of sex education during lately was treated by the Dr. Charles Snuff. He says that the boy matures and in some cases regrets and never becomes what he would be capable of being if his learning time is disturbed during his latency.
Okay, on the other hand, the Dr. Myers Sim, a psychiatrist of the University of Ottawa, says that teaching about sexuality cannot be considered the same as other ways of learning. It's not a question of thinking about who benefits, but of thinking about who is hurt or hurt by it. It should be recognized that the school in this grade system and structure will satisfactory for all teaching. It is not appropriate for teaching children about sexuality.
In according with that, the Dr. Lawrence say the student excited was excited by the instruction given in class. Take them the constraint and then do our kids of mental games, exhibition, etc. to the other childs. But what worries the most is what they do to the most boys, and also those whose parents haven't allowed them to attend this class. With this, they carry off a scheme of the mind's education with their classmates, causing them a shock.
Taking account what that Karen said, I don't think that sexual education deforms education because the purpose of sex education from this perspective is a form of education, a cry of giving to young and unmarried persons to make the better understand the benefit of early sexual behavior, and the rights of unhealthy sexual practice and behavior not to modify children too.
Depending on what Karen said about the sexual education damages children behaviors or thoughts, I'm not very agree with that. Because according to a research done at the Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., sexuality begins emerging in younger adolescents between time when kids first experience changes in their body and start experimenting with sexual feelings and thoughts. That's why it's so important because very young adolescents can be guided safely through this life stage, supported by his parents or their parents, families, communities, and it is included schools and teachers. You are working
Blessed,
with your microphone off. You should turn on your microphone.
based on what Esther said, I think that sex education classes in schools have never shown a reduction in teenage pregnancy or abortion. In fact, the data shows just the opposite. Even sexuality encompasses much more than the use of intrauterine devices and contraceptive pills, which is why the school gives the wrong message to the student.
Okay, girls, I understand your points of view, but I am not agreed with your opinions. For this, I will cite this example. Okay, countries like Sweden, Great Britain, and the United States are great examples of why sex education should be a prohibited subject in school. In Sweden, after 10 years of compulsory sex education, venereal disappears have increased. Sex education didn't work in this city or in this country, but it didn't work in Great Britain either. According to the report of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, we've comment on the Faculty of Sex Education, who driven by the numerical advances of unit brigades amongst teenagers. And the same case in the United States, where in those places where sex education was excited in school for years, venereal disease, illegal and perversion have increased.
Okay,
Well,
that is
say that the main teachers of children are their parents. Parents have the right and responsibility to educate their children about morality and sexuality. Has sex education classes in school overlook individual differences between children and destroy the natural modesty of boys and girls.
Okay, Amy, what were you about to say?
I just were about to say that it is interesting what you say. You can continue.
Okay, another argument, but I think sex education was prohibited in the school was where we know that children are very curious, and when they are taught about something in class, they want to try or find out more about it. Thinking sexual comment will have the consequence that they do inappropriate things to each other. Sex education only instills curiosity in a child, so teaching this in school is a trigger couple of creating bad traits in child and inculcating children to do things that are inappropriate at their age.
Okay, I guess it's my turn to talk. And I will say that I am not that agree because according to the YRBSS or Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance Survey in 2015, 41% of high school students had had sex at least once. So comprehensive sex education doesn't encourage kids to have sex because they will have this desire and curiosity anyways, even if we talk about it or don't talk about it. But with sex education, by teaching the risk of bisexual behaviors, teachers encourage and students to be careful why they are doing it, or mentioning the risk of that, they will be more careful about that.
Also, with sex education, we try to reduce the amount of pregnancy by educating students in the right way about this topic. So it's obvious that this is not the reason why this case advanced. And erasing it from school is the right option to eliminate this problem. We who have to try to improvise the way it is treated in school.
But what is the use of teaching child about sexuality if it is not used? The sample of places like the United States is more that clear, where sex education only cause increments in unwanted pregnancies and disasters. This only cause damage and disturbance to childhood. They teaching them things that are inappropriate for their age and causing harm to each other.
So, girls, in conclusion, we, we think the children don't need sex education. What they need is education in chastity. That is the successful integration of sexuality within. Children need to learn how to say no and why this turns out to be the best thing for them. They physical, morally, and spiritually.
Okay, I guess that's all. Thanks a lot for hearing us. So, in conclusion, from my point, by having knowledge of the risk involved in sexual misbehavior, they will try to avoid them. It doesn't mean they are not gonna be curious about it or they are not gonna try at least once to have sexual experiences, but at least it will guarantee us that they will be more careful by doing it. So for me, from my point, it is better to have sexual education and do it in the right way. So thanks a lot for hearing us in this time, at, until this time. So that's all. See you next time.